Welcome, everyone, to It's a Wrap with Rap. I am your host, Ron Rappaport. This podcast features people who have overcome life's challenges and adversities, people who can inspire and motivate, and people who can educate us on an assortment of topics. My special guest today is Ari Schonbrun. He is a loving father, devoted husband, 9/11 survivor, former chief administrative officer of Cantor Fitzgerald, one of the world's leading financial services firms, which occupied the top 5 floors of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. Author of Miracles and Fate on 78, motivational speaker and a messenger of hope and renewal, and truly an all-around good guy. Ari describes himself as a speaker who wrote a book rather than a writer who likes to speak. Ari was on the 78th floor of Tower 1 to change elevators to go to the 101st floor when the plane hit on September 11th, 2001. He helped a colleague suffering third-degree burns to safety and was thrown into the national spotlight thereafter. He is here today to give us a firsthand account about survival and his new purpose in life following that fateful day. Ari, so glad to have you. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Ron, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here.
Great. Hey, let's start at the beginning. Our audience always likes to know, who we're talking to. What were your early years like growing up in New York and your years living in Israel?
Oh, okay. We're going way back.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a traditional, an Orthodox. I'm an Orthodox Jew. I grew up in an Orthodox home, middle class family, nothing special. I went to a yeshiva, and things were. I was a normal, happy kid. My parents, when I was 14 years old, my parents made a decision that they wanted to move to Israel. They took myself and my younger brother. My older brother and older sister actually had already moved and were actually living there at the time. And it was difficult, going to Israel, not really speaking the language. 14 years old. I mean, that's, that's a prime age. I was leaving all my friends behind. I was, starting a new life. It was difficult. I remember there was a point in time where I came and my parents threw me into a dormitory.
Wow.
So for school. Yeah. So I was in a room with five other Israelis who did not like me only because I was American. It was tough it was tough in the 70s. It really, really was.
What did they think, you were spoiled?
Yeah. They used to hold up fingers, like, the peace signs. They used to say Villa Volvo. That's all you guys want, it's like, really. But I literally, I remember I cried to my dad about halfway through the year, and I said, I want to go back to the States. I can't do this anymore. And my dad said to me, my dad was very, very, very wise man. And he said to me, look, I'll tell you what, you finish the year out, and if you still want to go back, I'll send you back. Okay. He understood, and of course, by the time the year ended, I had made friends. I spoke the language, things had changed. So, he was just a smart man. And, so I went to high school there, went to college there, and I graduated in the late 70s, and the economy in Israel was terrible. I mean, there were no jobs to be had, nothing going on. So I picked myself up and I moved back to the States. And
yeah. So where did you work before you went to Cantor Fitzgerald?
So my career started at a company called United Mizrahi Bank, which is an Israeli bank, and I worked in the subsidiary, which was called UMB Bank and Trust Company. And I started my Wall Street career started there. I worked in the trading room, and I actually worked my way up to becoming to running the trading room. I was there for 10 years, and it was a very unstable situation because in the 10 years that I was there, I had gone through 5 presidents.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it really was. So when the 5th president came along, I went like, what, I've had enough. So I left there and I did a short stint at a commodity broker at a commodities trading house where I traded foreign currencies. And timing for me was terrible because about a year or two later, the bottom fell out of the currency market. Guys shut down their desks. I was out on the street, and that's when I met Howard Lutnick, who was at the time the president of Cantor Fitzgerald, and we got to talking. And he said, "I need a guy like you. Are you
Wow.
interested?" And I went
Yeah.
like, "Sure." And the rest was history.
That's amazing. Tell us how, well, you just told us how you came to work for Cantor Fitzgerald, but what was the work life like on those top floors of the World Trade Center? What was it like up there?
So it was amazing. I have to be honest with you. Being on, yeah, it really was. You really were on top of the world.
Yeah.
It was, I remember days where you would look out the window and you would see, all you'd see is white clouds. And one thing sticking up through the clouds was the point of the Empire State Building. That's all you saw. You saw the point of the Empire State Building, and everything else was just like white clouds. It was magnificent. I was so sorry. Back then the phones didn't have cameras on them.
Right,
It's too bad because
right.
trust me, I would have taken a picture of it. It was so
Yeah,
amazing.
I bet. It sounds
It was,
amazing.
and it was really great. I looked out over 3 bridges. You could see Kennedy Airport from my office. I mean,
Which
it
is a
was
long ways
amazing.
away. Yeah.
It was amazing. It really, really was. And nobody ever thought, I mean, I certainly didn't, never imagined that a thing like 9/11 can happen. Although I remember, now I wasn't at Cantor at the time. I wasn't working at the time, but in February of '93,
Right.
we had the bomb that in the garage.
Yeah.
So that was about 6 months. That was in February of '93. I started working there in October of '93. So I missed that episode. But it was really, it was amazing. The building was a magnificent piece of architecture. It was really, you really felt, believe it or not, you felt really, really good about it.
Yeah.
And, I was, I had gone through a whole bunch of different positions. I was running the business administration department, which was monitoring all of our expenses. I did that for several years. And then I was tapped to lead the accounts receivables group, global accounts receivables, which was way out of control. And I had good recommendations, and so the CFO of the company tapped me for it, and that was the job that I was doing when 9/11 happened.
So, Ari, can you describe for us what was your outlook on life pre 9/11 and how you viewed your career and your family life? How did you view all that?
So, to me at the time, my job was the most important thing in the world. Nothing trumped my job. I had, visions. Remember, it's Wall Street, right? Wall Street,
Right.
bunch of multimillionaires, bunch of investment bankers, and that was kind of like, I said, that's what I'm going to be. That's what I'm going to do. And I didn't want to let anything stop me from doing that. And I just went, full fledged. I would be working literally from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. That was my family, they took a back seat. Everything took a backseat to my job because all I wanted to do was become that wealthy banker or that wealthy Wall Street guy.
Yeah.
And that was my life. It's funny because my kids used to say to me, "Daddy, can you come to the school play? I've got the lead role." And I'd say, "No, sorry, Daddy's got to work." "Daddy, can you come to mock trial? That's after school, so that's after work, so you could be there, right?" And I go, "No, Daddy's got to work late. Daddy's got to work."
Yeah.
That was always the refrain.
That was your passion.
That was it.
Yeah.
Until that day.
Right. So now we're going to start into the day. So describe to us how your morning started out before you ever arrived at the World Trade Center. How did the morning go?
So honestly, the morning was like any other morning. All right. I had gone to synagogue. I go to synagogue every morning. And it was exactly 1 week before Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and so there was actually, we actually started services started actually earlier than normal because there was so much more to say.
Right.
And I got home after services, and it was about 20 to 7 in the morning. I had my briefcase over my shoulder, I had my cup of coffee in my hands, and I yelled up to my wife, "Bye, hun, love you, see ya." I yelled up to my kids, "Bye, kids, have a great day in school." And I started to walk out the door like I did every day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a voice from the second floor comes down, and my wife yells down to me. She goes, "Did you do Baruch's book order?" Now, Baruch is my third child. He was 8 years old at the time. And I discovered something.
What was that?
I discovered that teachers have a wonderful way of torturing parents. It's called the scholastic book order. Now, if your audience is laughing the way my audience laughed, they obviously know what that's all about.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
handed out these pamphlets, and my son was no different than any other kid. He wanted every book in the pamphlet that he wasn't going to read and every game in the pamphlet that he wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
And it was, like I said, it was 1 week before the Jewish New Year. My wife, who's a school principal, just opened school. And so she was busy preparing for the holiday and preparing school. And she had no patience for my son. And she said, "It's your job." And I went like, "Okay, I'll take care of it." But as I said to you before, I was working such long hours that that night, by the time I got home, he was sleeping. So I never did it with him. So she said, "Did you do Baruch's book order?" I go, "No, I didn't." She goes, "You're not leaving the house until you do that book order."
Yeah. You better listen to mama, right?
You got it. I said, I'm a good Jewish husband. I listen to my wife. So I put my briefcase down, put my cup of coffee down, walked into my kitchen, proceeded to negotiate with my 8-year-old for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I whittled him down to 2 books.
That's good.
Yeah. I thought it was real good.
How many did he want originally?
Oh my God. It's like every book in the pamphlet, I want this, I want that. You know how kids are.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was the two books that he picked were from a series called Survivor.
Wow.
That was, when those books came, I'm saying like, man, God, do you have a sense of humor or what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, very important, and I want your audience to hear this and to know this. Okay.
Sure.
That book order was actually due on Monday, but my son left his pamphlet in school on Friday.
Sure.
Now, if he would have brought that pamphlet home on Friday,
Yep.
I would have done it with him on Sunday.
Right.
And I would have been sitting at my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, and you would be interviewing somebody else because I'd be dead.
Yeah.
But because he left that pamphlet in school on Friday, I'm around today to tell you my story.
Thank God.
So, and you'll see a bunch of things like that happen throughout the course of the day, which led me to believe that just God was just looking out for me.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So that 20 minutes set me back 40. All right. Because the later you go, the longer it takes. And I didn't get to the trade center until 20 minutes to 9.
I learned something, when your son said, "Hey, you had to negotiate the scholastic book thing." People always say, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And I learned now, say, why is this happening for me? Because there's a reason.
Absolutely.
And I could go into stories, but
right.
But
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too.
But
absolutely, 100%. And that's why I said you'll see other coincidences, so to speak, that happen during the course of the day, which kept me alive.
Yeah. But so listen. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead if you want to say.
No, I was just
okay. So you arrive at the building,
right?
Okay. I want you to tell us how things ensued. I would really like you to take us through the whole thing, where you're going from floor to floor, so we don't miss anything. I want the audience to know what it was like, what you went through. So go ahead and take us through when you enter the building.
Right. So I come into the building. It's 20 minutes to 9, which is 40 minutes later than I would normally be there. And you couldn't take an elevator all the way from the lobby to the 101st floor. You had to take an elevator from the lobby to the 78th floor. That was an express elevator, and 78 was a sky lobby. So there was nothing up there except, escalators and elevators.
Right.
And there were about 12 of these elevators, and they were huge, huge elevators. They fit like 50 people in them. It was unbelievable. And they were the fastest elevators in the United States. There was one actually that went from the lobby all the way up to Windows on the World, which was on the 106th floor. And it did it in like under a minute. Your ears used to pop when you took that elevator. It was unbelievable. Anyway, so I'm sitting there waiting, and the first elevator that comes down is all the way on the right side of the lobby. So I ran down to the other side of the right side of the lobby, and I got into the elevator. Took it up to 78. When I got up to 78 and I got out of the elevator, I realized that the next elevator that I need to catch to get to my office on 101 was all the way on the left side of the Sky Lobby. So I get out of the elevator, I hang a left, and I start walking towards that bank of elevators. And I remember it was really, really nice. It was floor to ceiling windows. So it was a lot of natural light. It was very pretty. I must have been about 8 feet from that bank of elevators when, as best as I can describe, there was an explosion. I thought a bomb had gone off in the elevator. The entire building shook. The lights went out, the place filled with smoke, and I was literally thrown off my feet. I was on the ground.
Wow.
I'll tell you, I was never so scared in my life. And I heard people yelling fire in the elevator. And I remember thinking to myself, of course, there's a fire in the elevator. A bomb just went off in there.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What did you know?
Yeah. So I'm looking around. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And I see in between two banks of elevators that there is a light on. So I figured that an emergency light is probably a good place to go. But there was a lot of smoke. And I remember as a kid, they taught us about, smoke and fire. What do you do when there's a lot of smoke? You stay low to the ground, right?
Right.
I literally crawled.
Wow.
Literally crawled from where
thick.
I was.
That smoke was pretty thick. Yeah.
I literally crawled to that light. And then I got up and I looked around and I went behind the bank of elevators, and there was a door there, and I opened the door, and sure enough, there was an office there. It was a security office. Now I'm going to tell you something. I had been in that building over 8 years. I never knew that office existed. Wow. And I walked in there, and there was a guy who was the fire warden for the floor. And I look at him and I said, what do we do? Where do we go? The guy looks at me and goes, I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't know.
Of course he didn't know. We had no idea what had happened.
Right.
So I figured, I got to find a way out. I walk back outside into the hall, and I bump into a coworker of mine. Her name was Virginia DiChiara. Virginia was on the elevator that I was about to get on when that plane hit. And I'll never forget, she described to me the situation. She said to me, when the doors of the elevator started to close, and when the plane hit, they jammed, and they were open about a foot. And the walls of the elevator collapsed. The ceiling collapsed. There was a cable in the elevator that snapped, was sparking in the elevator. The jet fuel came down the sides of the elevator, and it was ignited by a spark, and there was a wall of fire.
Wow.
There were 3 people in that elevator. There was Roy Bell, Virginia, and Renee. Roy Bell was the first one to jump through the fire out the doors, and he suffered 2nd-degree burns. Virginia jumped out right after him, and she suffered 3rd-degree burns.
Wow.
And Renee, who was the last one out, she died.
She died right then and there.
She died from her burns. I don't think it was right then and there, but she didn't survive. She didn't. She did get to a hospital, I think. I don't know how, but she did, and she died. I mean, that's how severe. So, look at the difference between life and death that day, at least for these 3 people, was 6, 8, 10 seconds. That's
sure.
it.
Yeah.
For me,
Roy Bell jumps out in 2nd degree, and
right.
A second later, she's got 3rd-degree burn.
Right. Yeah. Right. It was, so she sees me and she says to me, Ari, thank God, please help me. And whatever you do, please don't leave me. She goes, I'm in so much pain. And here's the irony. Virginia and I were not good friends. She had been hired a year before by Cantor Fitzgerald as an internal auditor, and the first department she audited was mine. And needless to say, she didn't give me very good marks. As a matter of fact, she almost got me fired. And there we were.
Yeah.
And you know what? All I saw was another human being who was in trouble, And I was the guy that God put there to help her. And I said, no matter what, I will help you. I will not leave you, and we will get out of here. Our past just did not matter.
Not
She
at
was
that point. Yeah.
she was just another human being in
Sure.
big trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's it. Yeah.
How bad was she?
Let me tell you something. People ask me, how do you know they were third degree burns? You know what I said? When you see third degree burns, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, her clothes were burnt, her hair was singed. You know, the literally the skin was hanging off of her arms. I mean, she was just a mess.
God.
The lucky part was, and it's kind of funny to say that, but before she jumped through the fire, she put her hands over her face. So her face did not get burned, and neither did the palms of her hand. So, and I understand that was, that kind of like what saved her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was unreal. So, I brought her into that office, sat her down, gave her something, gave her some water to drink because we still didn't know how to get out.
Right.
And then finally, the fire warden says, okay, we can get out, stairwell on the left. And I remember thinking, stairwell on the left. From that point forward, anytime I walked into a building,
yeah,
I always look for these little signs. You know what they say? They
exit.
say exit. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I look for those signs when I walk into a building because I never know, and they may save my life, because they certainly did that day.
Did you know that there was a stairwell there?
I had no clue. The only thing I knew were elevators and 2 escalators at the end of the sky lobby that went up 1 or 2 flights. That was it. I had no idea about stairwells, nothing.
Yeah.
And so we looked around. He said, stairwell on the left. I looked up, and sure enough, I find the exit sign. I had to go around a bend, and there was a door. And there were a couple of people there besides us, besides the 4 of us. There were like 6 or 8 other people. Some guy ran ahead, and he opened the door, and he said, I found it. And I looked inside, and sure enough, it was a stairwell, but there were lights on. And I thought to myself, you know what? They're probably emergency lights, and who knows how long they're gonna last, right?
Right.
So I turned around to the people behind me. I said, does anybody have a flashlight? Thinking to myself, if the lights go out, it'll be pitch black. Ron, 2 people were holding up flashlights.
You're kidding.
And I'll never forget, I was thinking to myself, where did you get a flashlight from, and why are you holding, why are you carrying it? But I said, listen, folks, if the lights go out, nobody panic. We will have light.
So back in those days, the cell phones didn't have lights.
No, we didn't have flashlights. The
Right.
smartphones. The closest thing to a smartphone we had was the StarTAC flip phone,
Yeah.
which had an address book in it. That was a major thing. You had an address book in your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the next thing I did was I looked down at Virginia's feet, and I said, thank God she's wearing flats, because you know what, Ron? There were high-heeled shoes in that stairwell all the way down. Women had just kicked them off to get down as fast as they could.
Sure.
Plus
they didn't want to trip.
Yeah. So we started to head down. It was the fire warden, Roy Bell, myself, and Virginia. We walked in a line. I remember that because I told Virginia, if you feel faint, if you feel like you're going to fall forward, fall on me, I'll carry you. And we started to head down. Now, we got down 3 flights, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest miracles of the day happened to me. Besides the fact that I wasn't killed when the plane hit, my cell phone rang. Now, people today look at me like I'm crazy. So what? But back then, forget it. In the Trade Center, you could never get signal on your phone. Never. I used to be, standing by the window of my office, hello, can you hear me? Can you hear? Remember that commercial? Can you hear me now? Yeah, they filmed it in my office. Okay. So, but there I was on a 75th floor.
Yeah.
Right. We got down 3 flights, and my phone rang. I was so shocked. I picked it up. I went, hello. It was my wife on the other end of that phone.
Wow.
And she was crying, and she was telling me something about a plane going into the building. I had no idea what she was talking about. I said to her, Joyce, I'm in a stairwell. I'm on the 75th floor. I'm on my way down. Now is not a good time.
Yeah.
I said, I'll call you when I get out of the building, and I hung up the phone. not realizing, of course, it would be hours until I spoke to her again.
Sure.
Now, here's the kicker. Roy Bell says to me, "Oh my God, you got signal on your phone. Can I use your phone to call my wife?" I said, "Of course." I handed him my phone. He dialed. He hit send. Nothing. Dead.
Nothing. Wow.
I literally looked up. I said, "Thank you, God." Because at
Yeah.
least now I knew that my wife knew that I wasn't killed when the first plane hit.
Right.
And that was certainly comforting. We went down. We got down to about the 50th floor. Virginia says to me, "Ari, I can't go on. Can't do it." My first instinct was I'll have her sit down, rest a little bit, and then we'll get up and keep going. And then I thought to myself, you know what? If she sits down, she may never get up. And if she doesn't get up, she's going to die. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind. And I said, you know what? Not on my watch. Okay.
Right.
I wasn't going to let that happen. I said, no, Virginia, you can do this. And a couple of people had bottles of Poland spring water. We were pouring it on her arms to give her relief from the burns and giving her to drink. And we continued down.
So, Ari, would you say at that stage, you pretty much went with your gut feeling on how to do things?
Oh, without a doubt. You know, people say, how did you know how to do this? How did you know how to do that? Well, you know what? I don't know if it was instinct, if it was adrenaline. I don't know. Okay. Maybe it was God just guiding me. Who knows?
Right.
Okay. But I just did. I did whatever I felt was the right thing to do.
Right.
You know, let's be real. Who's going to question me?
Exactly.
So we continued on down. We got to the 38th floor. It was backed up with people. To see the firefighters had stopped the people from going down as they were going up.
Right.
So I remember I was really scared because she was a mess. And I started yelling out, "Is there a paramedic in the building? If you're a paramedic, I got a burn victim here. We need help. If not, please step to the right and let us through." And they did. People just squeezed over as much as possible.
Wow.
And they literally opened a path for us to keep going down. That was amazing.
It was like parting the Red Sea.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It was just like Moses parting the Red Sea. It was just like they just opened a path. We got down to about the 8th floor, and there was water all over the place, ankle deep running water. And I remember I turned to Virginia. I said to Virginia, "Take it real slow, real slow. I mean, if she slips and falls, all right, it's game over. I don't care, you know?"
Yeah.
So we continued on down. We got down to the 1st floor, and the fire warden who's leading us this whole time keeps walking down. I go, like, "Where are you going?" He goes, "We have to get out through the garage." All right. I turned to Virginia. I said, "Virginia, we have to go down to the garage. You know, we've already been down 78 flights of stairs. What's another 4 or 5?"
Right.
And we continued on down.
Yeah.
We got down 2 flights, and all of a sudden the door on the 1st floor opens up and some guy yells out, "Where are you people going?" I said, "We're going out through the garage." He goes, "No, you can't get out through the garage. You got to come back up here and come out through the 1st floor." Well, I told Virginia, we got to go back up 2 flights. She said a few things that I can't say in mixed company.
I bet.
Yeah. And we went back up. Here is the other irony. Later, I learned there were people in that garage that never got out. Now, who was the guy who opened the door? I don't know, because I never saw him. I only heard the voice. And why did he pick that moment to open the door?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
So the people that didn't get out the garage, was it flooded or what happened?
I don't know if the building collapsed.
Yeah.
If they were trapped, I don't know. All I know is I heard that people didn't get out.
Right.
So, you know, we come back upstairs, we get out through the 1st floor, and there are cops and firefighters, and they're telling us to go through the mall, through the atrium, you know, all the way until we finally got out on Church Street.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the cops and firefighters were there telling everybody uptown. People were literally running uptown because there was stuff that was falling down from the sky, you know, from the buildings.
Sure.
But I stopped the cop and I said, "Look, I got a burn victim here. What do I do? Where do I go?" He goes, "Go across the street in front of the Millennium Hotel. We're setting up a triage center there and there'll be ambulances." And that's what we did. We went across the street, and sure enough, an ambulance pulls up. I get her into the ambulance and I breathe a sigh of relief. See, up until now, the only thing I can do is keep her spirits up. I couldn't help her medically.
Right.
And, I think that was just as important. And
Oh,
now,
absolutely.
and now finally she's getting medical attention. So I breathe a sigh of relief. I step out of the ambulance. I turn around. I look up at the buildings, and there was a guy standing next to me. And I said to him, "Excuse me, how did building 2 get on fire?" And the guy looks at me like I'm crazy. He go, "What are you talking about? 2 jetliners went into the buildings. They're calling it a terrorist attack." I look at him like he's crazy. What are you talking about? You see, Ron, I never heard that second plane. Now
Wow.
people think I'm nuts. They think, how's that possible? You know what? I was so focused on
Yeah.
the task at hand. It was my survival. It was Virginia's survival. I had a mission and nothing was going to stop me. And I just blocked everything else out.
Yeah,
And
it
I
was
just,
it was probably tunnel vision. You had,
yeah,
nothing else mattered.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So I never heard that second plane. I'm waiting for Virginia. I'm waiting for the ambulance to leave. I turned to the driver. I said, "Why aren't you leaving?" He goes, "We can't leave until we fill the ambulance. We're expecting a huge amount of casualties."
Yeah.
They wouldn't let Virginia lay down. She had to be sitting up, and she was writhing in pain. She's because I kept checking on her every
Sure.
few minutes. I kept jumping into and she says, "Ari, I can't do this. I'm so much pain." I said, "Virginia, hang on. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna
Right.
be okay." Finally, they fill the ambulance, and I'm thinking, great, because really, Ron, once that ambulance leaves, there's only one place that I'm going to, and that's back to the building. Now, you ask me why? Because I'm looking for my friends, I'm looking for my coworkers, I'm looking to help. It's all I wanted to do. All right, that was my nature.
You wanted to go back and help people out of the building.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, when the EMT turns around and he says, "All right, we're ready to go," Virginia turns to me and she says to me, "Ari, you're coming with us." Now, I don't want to say I was in a comfort zone, but the reality is, as I said, I wanted to go help. And, if I had to be someplace else or get someplace else, I would know how to do that from where I was because I knew the area.
Yeah.
Getting into that ambulance and going to God knows where,
Yeah.
that
Right.
didn't exactly excite me. I said to Virginia, "You're going to be okay. I'm going to get a hold of your mom." She asked me to call her mother. I said, "I'm
Yeah.
going to get a hold of your mom and she's going to meet you at the hospital and you're going to be okay." She literally turns to the ambulance driver and says, "We're not leaving unless he comes with us."
Wow.
I'm looking at the driver. He's looking at me. I see in his eyes, he's thinking, this is not a cab service. I'm thinking, I don't need a cab. But I turned to him finally. I said, "You know what? Maybe for our own psychological well-being, maybe I should just come." He goes, "Fine, hop into the front." And I got into the front of the ambulance and we pulled away.
Something told you to get in that ambulance.
We were one of only a few ambulances that actually got away from the scene that day.
Wow.
I have friends who are members of Hatsala, which is a volunteer ambulance company. They showed me pictures of crushed ambulances at the scene.
Wow.
And Virginia thanks me every day for saving her life. And I say, "You got it all wrong. Who saved whose life?" If she wouldn't have insisted that I get into that ambulance, I would have been standing at the base of that building when it came down. I'd be dead. No doubt in my mind.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But,
For sure.
She insisted.
I mean, who would have ever thought those buildings would collapse like that?
Not me.
Yeah.
Not me. I'll tell you something. I remember. I'm going to tell you something, Ron. I'm sure you've seen it on TV. I know people have seen it on TV. It was 100 times worse than what you saw on TV.
Oh, I can imagine.
All right. It was, I mean, when I saw the hole in that building and the smoke and the fire, I mean, it was just like, I was in shock. I was in awe. I was just like, it was just unfathomable.
Yeah. Yeah. So you are taking Virginia to the hospital. And then what happens at the hospital?
Right. So we get to the hospital and so right when we get there, I'm telling you, there were gurneys, there were doctors, nurses, supplies, everything. They were just ready and willing and able for the casualties.
Yeah.
The problem was there weren't a whole lot of casualties because you were either very, very much alive or very, very much dead.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot in between. So we helped Virginia out of the ambulance, got her into the emergency room, and the doctors and nurses with it. Once they put us into the room, they all disappeared. I'll never forget. It's like yesterday for me. And Virginia is, Ari, I'm in so much pain. I can't, she couldn't find a spot for herself. And I'm going like, hello, like, where are the doctors? Where are the nurses?
Yeah.
I finally walked out into the middle of the floor and I said, hello, is there a doctor here? What's going on? I started literally yelling. And finally a guy comes over and says, what's going on? What's all the yelling about? I says, do you see this poor woman here? She's suffering 3rd-degree burns and everybody just disappearing. And the guy looks, he says, who are you? I go, who am I? He goes, yeah, you a relative? I said, no, I'm her coworker. I brought her in. He goes, you have to leave. Why do I have to leave? Because you're not a relative.
Oh my God.
I'm going, are you? He goes, hospital protocol. Hospital protocol? We're under a terrorist attack and you're concerned about hospital protocol? Are you kidding me?
It's unbelievable.
Sorry, sir. You have to leave. And they literally threw me out.
Wow.
I turned to Virginia. I said, Virginia, listen, I got to go, but I promise I'll get a hold of your mom and, she's going to come and you're going to be okay. That was the mantra for the whole day. You're going to be okay. And I left. I walked out. And as I walk out, I heard somebody whispering, like, wow, did you hear? Tower 2 collapsed. And literally, it was St. Vincent's Hospital, 7th Avenue and 12th Street. And there was a clear view straight down to the Trade Center. And sure enough, Tower 2 was gone.
It's gone.
Gone.
Wow.
It was, to me, it was unfathomable. I mean, it was 50,000 square feet per floor times 110 floors. And this thing was gone.
Yeah.
I had a pit in my stomach like you wouldn't believe. And I'm running so scared. You can't imagine. I'm trying to find a phone. It was a whole ordeal trying to find a phone. It was, I don't know how much more of the story you want. But,
let me ask you a question. When you got out of the hospital, what was how were your clothes? Were they wet? Did you look like a sweated up mess? I mean,
I was a mess. I was sweaty. I was a mess. I tell you this, when I got home that night, my wife made me get undressed on the porch because she says your clothes stank. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, I wasn't really paying much attention to how I looked.
Right. I was just curious.
I had no idea. I'm going to be honest with you. Until I got home, I had no idea what I looked like. And I had made several stops along the way until I finally met with my brother. Because I went uptown. He was on 47th Street and 6th Avenue. And, I got up to his place. And then we heard there was limited subway service and we went downstairs and sure enough, we were able to catch a train. We caught a subway out to Queens, and I had a friend who owned a car service, and I had spoken to her prior, and I said, I know you can't send a car to pick me up in the city because the city was shut down. It was totally locked down.
Right.
I said, but if I get out of the city, can you send the car to pick me up? She goes, you know what? Here's your phone number, 24/7. You can call this number. They'll give you whatever you want.
Wow.
And it was, I forgot what time it was when we got out to Queens. But I called it and they said, they'll be there in like 20 minutes or something like that. And I looked at the traffic, and like Queens Boulevard was at a dead stop. I went like half hour my butt, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I remember it was at least an hour. But the car finally comes. And at that point in time, we had signal on our phones. My wife called his wife, told her to meet us at my house. And the two of us, took the car and got to my house. We got to my house at 5:30 in the afternoon. Ron, there were 20 people in my living room, and I had no less than 100 phone messages.
Wow.
And I remember, and back then it wasn't digital. It was, they had the little micro cassettes. Remember those?
Yeah.
I still have that micro cassette. I don't have anything to play it on.
Right.
But I still have it.
You still have it.
Yeah. And I still have the list because my wife was taking down notes from everybody that called, and I had to call everybody back. But I learned something very important that day.
What was that?
You have no idea how many friends you really have until they all think you're dead.
Yeah, it's when they all come out of the woodwork. Hey,
That's right.
listen, I wanted you to tell the story. You're walking out of the hospital. You don't have phone service, and I think you went into a restaurant
Oh,
and you met up with a guy.
yeah.
Tell that story
Oh.
because I think it just shows how New Yorkers changed a little bit that day.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, what happened was when I walked out of the hospital, okay, and I'm looking for a payphone,
Yeah.
right? A payphone. I
Right.
got to be honest, nobody was using payphones back then. It's like, and I do this every time I speak to an audience. And I said, how many people here have used the payphone in the last 30 days? And, everybody looks around, nobody. I
Nobody.
said, that's the way it was. Anyway, but there was a guy walking down the street who was talking on his cell phone. And I'll never forget. I was thinking to myself, when this is all over, I'm going to find out who his carrier is and I'm going to switch to them because he was the only guy I knew had service. I ran over to the guy and I said, excuse me, can I use your phone? It's an emergency. And the guy goes, yeah, sure. No problem. And he says, listen, I'll call you back. Some guy needs my phone. He hangs up. He hands me his phone. And the first person I called was Virginia's mom.
Which you said you would do. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But I told this to my wife 6 months later.
That didn't go over.
She was so mad. She said, why didn't you call me first? I said, I promised I'd call her mom.
Yeah.
So I called her mom. I told her she's in the hospital. I recommend that she get down there as quickly as possible. They thanked me and I hung up the phone. And then I said to the guy, can I make one more call? And the guy goes, sure. Because he heard the conversation. Right.
Yeah.
So I dialed my wife. I hit send. Nothing. Dead. And I'll never forget. I went, forget that carrier. But I don't know what to do. I'm really running scared. Across the street, I see a restaurant. I figured, restaurant, they have phones, right?
Right.
I go running into the restaurant. I bump into the waiter. I says, excuse me, can I use your phone? And the waiter looks at me and goes, well, it's not my restaurant. It's not my phone. I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? I push right past him because I saw in the back, there were two people on phones. I ran there. I get to the back and the woman's standing there. She goes, do you need a phone? I go, yeah. She goes, you're going to have to wait. I go, wait, I can't wait. You don't understand. This is an emergency.
Don't they know that the World Trade Center was?
You know what? A lot of people didn't.
What, they're just sitting there eating and
nothing
happened?
happened. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
there's
like,
got to be sirens going off all over the place.
yeah, but it's downtown. And let's be real. Sirens going all over the place. Is that something new in New York?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Right.
So there were two guys sitting there and eating breakfast or lunch. I don't even know because I have no idea what time it is.
Yeah.
And the guy looks at me, he says to me, do you need a phone? My apartment is 5 doors down. You can come to my apartment and use my phone. Now, this is New York City. I'm thinking to myself, axe murderer? But I'm desperate. And I go like, yeah, thank you so much. She says, listen, the guy needs my phone. I'm going to take him to my apartment. You and I will catch up later.
Yeah.
And we walk out of the restaurant and we walked around the corner and he gets to his building and literally, believe it or not, about 20 feet past his building, there was a payphone and there were a line of people on the phone.
Wow.
Waiting.
Yeah.
Right. The guy opens the door to the apartment. It wasn't a doorman building, right? He opens the door to the apartment building. Yeah. Okay. And as he opens the door, he turns to the people online, says, if anybody needs a phone, you can come up to my apartment and use my phone.
Wow.
Wow is right.
I bet he had a line.
I found out later that his phone bill from that day alone was over $300.
Well,
and
he did a good deed.
Unbelievable. Guy was great. But I remember looking in when he opened the door to the apartment. I look into the apartment building. It was a 6-story walk up. Wow. And I went like, God, please let him live on the first floor. I was a little tired. And he did. He lived on the first floor.
Thank God.
I was like, unbelievable. You talk about all these coincidences,
Yeah.
I get into his apartment and the guy shows me where his phone is. I said, do you have a TV? No. Do you have like AM radio? No. do you have a mirror? No. Do you have a phone? He goes, yeah, phone's right there. Unbelievable. The guy was a little strange, but really, really nice. And I finally got a hold of my wife, and she started to cry. When she picked up the phone, she started to cry when I told her it's me,
Yeah.
because Tower One had collapsed. And the last time she spoke to me, I was on the 75th floor of Tower One.
Yeah.
She was sure I was dead. She was sure. She lived through this twice,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
Terrible.
but thank God, thank God. And the guy was really nice. I hung out there for about 15 minutes or so. And then I just needed to keep moving. You know,
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
couldn't, I just needed to get,
So
you know,
you hooked up with your brother, and then
I hooked up with my
and then the
brother.
car. Yeah.
Yeah. And we finally got home. Yeah. And I'll tell you, it was a harrowing day, a harrowing experience. Um, you know, we didn't, you know, everybody, by the time everybody left, it was like 11:30 at night, you know, because everybody wanted to know what was going on. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Ari, at what point, uh, after you got Virginia down and took care of business, at what point did you let your emotions out, and to who? I mean, you had to be strong for the moment, but after that, there had to be some emotions. You had to let it out.
Ron, you're absolutely right. Thank you for asking that question. You're absolutely right. It happened in my brother's office, actually. When I got to his office, I'll never forget. Um, it was his office is on a lower level. So there was a bell there. You know, I rang the bell and they said, you know, who's calling? I said, it's Ari Schonbrun. I'm here to see Elliot. And they said, just a minute. And they buzzed me in, and I walked through the double doors. And then there's another set of double glass doors. And about, I don't know, maybe it was 20 feet past the glass doors, my brother was standing there. And I walked into that office, and I grabbed him, I hugged him, and I started to cry.
Yeah.
I totally, totally lost it. And you're right. I had been strong the whole day because I needed to be. It was my
Sure.
survival. It was
Oh, yeah.
Virginia's survival. And now there was somebody else that I could lean on. And by the
Yeah.
way, he was my younger brother. There's somebody that I could lean on, and I just totally lost it. And I was crying for like 5 solid minutes.
Oh, yeah.
You
I can
know,
imagine.
it was unbelievable.
Ari,
But
what is your thought process as to why you were spared? You walked out of there without a scratch.
so, you know, it was after 9/11, every time I would bump into somebody, they would say to me, "You've got a mission." You know, they hear my story, they go, "You've got a mission, you got a mission." And I'm going like, okay, no, you got a mission. And I finally, I really, I felt bad for the guy that it happened to, but you know, guys, you got a mission. I said, you know what? Tell me what the damn mission is. I'll go out and do it, and let me get on with my life.
Right.
You know? Um, but what happened was it took a little bit of time until it sunk in the magnitude of what had happened and how I was spared. All right. And it did take time, you know, until it finally sunk in.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? I was plucked out of a collapsing, burning building and given a second chance. You know, I think God is testing me, and I need to figure this out. And I started to tell my story. And as I told my story, it was giving hope to people.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was literally changing people's lives. Literally. And
Wow.
I say that not because I think it, because
Yeah.
people had come up to me and said to me, "You've changed my life.
Wow.
I'm going to change. I'm going to do things differently," because I realized that my old life is not why I was put on this earth.
Yeah.
It wasn't just to make money. That wasn't the purpose. And I realized that I did have a mission, and that was to help people understand what this world is all about. I made people understand there is a God out there. All right. And he is watching over us, and he's guiding us. All right. We just have to listen to those whispers.
Right.
You know, as I talk about my whispers and bricks, we have to listen to those whispers, because that's God whispering to us the right things to do. And I started to literally travel the world, telling my story and giving hope to people. And, you know, and I firmly believe that, that's one reason why I was saved. The second reason was simply because, they say that man's two biggest fears, you know what they are? Number one is public speaking, and
Yeah,
number two is death.
I
Which,
believe that.
which according to Jerry Seinfeld means if you were at a funeral, you'd rather be in the box than delivering the eulogy.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So, but that was one thing. I never had a fear of public speaking. I can get up in front of an audience of 1,000 people and give my talk, no fear. So, and that was, I feel, it was a gift. That is a
Yeah.
gift that God gave me, and I needed to do the right thing with it. And the other reason, and the final reason I think that I was spared, was because 2 years after 9/11, which was 8.5 years after the doctors told my wife we wouldn't be able to have any more kids, I had another child.
Wow.
All right. My
Yeah.
son Yoni was born. And I think that soul needed to come down. And
Yeah.
God was just waiting for this. And so that's my firm belief. So I always say, I'm not sure exactly what he's going to do in his life, but it's going to be something special.
Yeah, I can imagine he will be special. Did you receive any counseling after the traumatic event? And if not, what do you attribute your inner strength to?
So I did not seek help. I had, this is too funny. Every time I would bump into somebody, they would say, you should really talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I go, okay, you should really talk to somebody. Okay. You should really talk to somebody. I finally got, again, the last poor guy that said that to me is, you should really talk to somebody. I said, I'm talking to you. But I didn't seek counseling. But you know what? Because I have a tremendously wonderful family. I had my 4 kids, I had my wife, and they were my pillars of strength. I will never forget, Ron. I got to tell you this story. It was a month later. It was the end of October, and Cantor Fitzgerald was having a memorial service in Central Park. And my wife says to me, take the girls with you. My girls were 13 and 15 at the time. And I said, what do I need to take the girls with me for? Just for support. I go, I don't need support. I'm fine. Ari, please just take the girls. And then my 2 girls go, Daddy, come on. We want to go with you. Come on, please. And I melted like butter.
Yeah.
So I took the girls, and we got Central Park, where, there's a big tent and whatever. And they had the service, and it was moving. It was very moving. Carole King actually was there. She played You've Got a Friend.
Yeah.
I love Carole
Wow.
King, by the way.
Yeah. Great.
So she played You Got a Friend, and there was the Harlem Boys Choir who sang whatever. And then when everything was all over, they read the names, and they had a running video of faces. And that's when I lost it, because I saw all these people. Remember, we lost 658 people.
Yeah.
And I knew probably 500 of them.
Wow.
Simply because of the interaction that I had with all of them.
Sure.
And I just broke down. I totally broke down. My girls hugged me, and they were my pillars of strength. And
thank God they were there.
100%. When I came home, I said to my wife, thank you so much for insisting that I take the girls, because it really helped me so much. I really needed it. So I mean, that's how I think that's what helped me survive, the ordeal.
Ari, tell us, what happened to Virginia? Do you stay in contact with her?
Oh, good question. Virginia and I have become very good friends.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. We do stay in touch. She was living in New Jersey. She moved out to Florida. She lost her dad. Her mom is still alive. Her mom, I think, is in her 90s, and she's still alive, and she's very vibrant, and she's in a assisted living place. And every time Virginia comes up to New York, we get together, coffee, we get together for lunch, dinner, whatever, we schmooze, and we keep up and we catch up. So,
Right.
it
That's
turned
great.
into, it turned into a very, very meaningful friendship.
Oh, yeah. How did the event uh, change your life, and what length of time did it take to absorb the enormity of what happened? And what things changed, such as your personality, your spirituality, your career, how you viewed your career and family and things like that?
So my life obviously did change. I mean, you don't go through that type of experience and not expect to change. Although, Ron, I will tell you that there are people out there that do go through life-changing experiences, and the change lasts for 3 days and they go back to being who they were.
Yeah.
When this happened to me, as I tell people, I was the same guy on Wednesday that I was on Tuesday. Nothing for me had changed. It did take time. It took about, I want to say it took about 6 or 8 months until my change fully happened. And some of the important changes that I like to talk about is, number one was, I decided that, I was not going to curse anymore. I wasn't going to swear. And, working on Wall Street, man, that is not an easy thing to do,
I can
because
imagine.
these guys are worse than drunken sailors, let me tell you. But I said, I am not going to swear. I didn't think it was a proper thing to do. I didn't think it was a nice thing to do. All right. And I wanted to be a nicer, to quote a phrase from George W. Bush, a kinder and gentler nation. Well, I wanted to be a kinder and gentler Ari Schonbrun. And that's what I did. So, and people, when people found out that Ari Schonbrun doesn't curse anymore, anytime there was a meeting and I was invited to it, or it was in a conference room, or it was by my desk, nobody at that meeting would swear, because
A lot of
everybody
respect.
knew.
They had a lot of respect for you.
Yes. So you see, because I made a decision,
Yeah.
look at the effect it had on other people around me. All right.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
what I realized. Okay. I can change people. All right.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
by making my decisions and talking to people, I can change other people. And that's what happened. I became I used to fly off the handle at the drop of a hat. I had a very, very bad temper. And I curtailed it. It's not easy. Do I sometimes fly off the handle? Sure. Like, I'm still human,
Right.
but nowhere near like it was, and my job, still important, but not most important. My
Right.
family is most important. It's like where it used to be daddy's got to work. It's daddy's at the school plays, daddy's on the class trips, daddy's wherever his children and now grandchildren need him
Wow.
to be, because
Congratulations.
that is what is important in life. Thank you so much. Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a bunch of grandchildren.
Wow. Nice. What was the spark that got you to write the book, Miracles and Fate on 78, which I read? I have to tell my audience, it's on our Facebook page. It's a great book. Get a chance to read it, please do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As you read my bio and you said I was not an author who speaks, but I was a speaker who wrote a book. I had been speaking for probably 9 years or so, and I had a very, very dear friend of mine who was actually living in the UK, who invited me to come speak in the UK. He actually put a speaking tour together for me, and after the tour, he said to me, "Ari, you have to write a book." And I go, I'm not a writer. I'm a speaker. He goes, I don't care. Your story has to be told. Get a ghostwriter. I don't care, but you need to write the story. And I went like, okay. But again, like I said, I'm not a writer. So I Googled ghostwriters, right?
Yeah.
Figured
Yeah.
that should work, right? And I Googled ghostwriters and I picked a guy and I called up and we started talking. And he says, wow, sounds like a great story. Yeah, I'd love to do this project. I said, okay, so how much? He goes, $60,000. I'm thinking to myself, I'm in the wrong business. But
Yeah.
I said, like, yeah, no, whatever. And then I kept calling and I finally found a guy who was going to do it for like $8,000. And I was ready to invest that. But I said, I want samples of your writing. And, we spoke about my story, and then he started sending me stuff, and every page he sent me, I was rewriting. And I finally said, stop. This is not going to work. If I have to rewrite everything you write, I may as well do it myself. And that's what happened. There was nobody to do it, and I just did it myself. I did have a cousin. I had a relative who was going to do it, but then she was getting divorced and she had 2 kids. So I asked her, because she was good. I asked her, if I write it, will you at least edit it? And she goes, you know what? I'll do that. And that's what happened. I wrote it. She edited it. Although she said to me there wasn't much editing to do. She says it was great. And that was it. And, I sent it out to literary agents. I can't tell you how many. And this is very famous. These are very famous stories about people who've written books, who send them to literary agents, and they say, oh, it's terrible. It's blah, blah, it's not good. Like J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter. I think, I forgot how many times she got denied. Yeah. I mean, and look what it turned out to be. So I got very depressed about it, because I spent all this time, I wrote the book, and now I can't get anybody to publish it. My friend turns and says to me, Ari, self-publish it. It doesn't matter. So I did. I self-published it. I was lucky because I had a friend who worked at R.R. Donnelley, who are the largest book printers in the world. And he was in the financial printing side, but he got somebody on the book side, and he hooked me up. So I was able to get it published, right? I had a guy who did the cover and the inside of the book. I never knew there was a genius towards designing the inside of a book. I never realized that, but there is. And so we had it, we designed it, sent it over. They said, how many copies do you want? I said, I don't know, 2,500. And the next thing I know, there is a tractor trailer backing up to my garage with pallets of books. And I'm going like, what did I just do?
Yeah. How much is this going to cost?
Oh God, man. But like, what am I going to do with all these books? Anyway, I actually sold out my first printing, did a second printing, and I'm almost sold out of my second printing now.
Wow.
So people, it was available it's available from my website. It's available on Amazon. And I do, when I go speak, I sell from the back of the room. So I have different outlets, and a couple of stores here. A couple of local bookstores in my neighborhood have it as well.
Quick question. Do you have any triggers regarding the attack? Has anything set you off? And have you actually been back to the site? I know a lot of people never went back to the site.
So, okay. So triggers, loud noises. Mm-hmm. Loud noises scare the hell out of me.
Yeah.
It's just, somebody said to me once, you realize you're suffering from PTSD. I went like, I am not. They go, no, you are. And I went like, oh, okay, fine. I think the whole thing's a crock, but really I get very, very scared when I hear loud noises. You drop a book on a floor, or, something crashes, or it just scares the heck out of me. So that's, that was that. What was the other question? Sorry, I forgot.
The other question. No, that was, have you been back to the site?
Oh, right. Back to the site. The answer is yes. I was back at the site not long after it happened. There was one night I was with friends, and we went there just to kind of see what was going on. I was there, and I couldn't stay. I had to leave.
Okay.
I went down when they finished the museum.
Yeah.
We went down there to see the museum, but it's not an easy thing for me. I actually recently, for the 20th anniversary, I was down there, not on the 11th, because the 11th was a Saturday. I think it was I was down there on a Thursday before 9/11. And because somebody wanted to do LinkedIn wanted to do an interview with me, which they put out, the LinkedIn company put it out there. But it's hard. It's hard for me. If you go to the pools and you go to the North Tower pool, and you know how big it is. I mean, if you've been there, you know how big it is.
Yeah.
Right. So 2 full sides of the North Pool are all Cantor Fitzgerald employees.
Yeah, it's got to be tough.
All right. You know, so
Absolutely.
literally 25% are Cantor employees.
Yeah.
It's just, and I go, and then I start looking at the names, and then I get,
Yeah, I can understand.
yeah.
So Ari, you leave the corporate world. You're doing speaking, you're doing podcasting, life coaching. Tell us about your podcast, Whispers and Bricks, and how did you come upon that name?
So I'm going to be honest with you. A podcast never entered my mind. I didn't even know what a podcast was. Serious. What happened was I have a friend. Well, she became a very, very dear friend, Rebecca Gregory. Rebecca actually was a victim of the Boston Marathon bombing, and she lost her leg in the marathon bombing.
Yeah.
And she turned into a speaker, and we shared a stage a few years ago at the Breakers, actually in Florida. I forgot what the event was. I don't remember what the event was, but it was a great event. And we each spoke there, and that's when I got to meet her. We switched book. We traded books because she also has a book. And about a year after that, or 2 years after that, she calls me up and she says, "Hey, I'm doing this podcast. Would you mind being a guest?" I go like, "Sure. What do I have to do?" She goes, she goes, "No, we'll do it on Zoom. I'll call you, and just, and exactly. She explained to me how it works. And I went, sure. And right after the interview, she said to me, "Ari, you should do your own podcast because you got such a great story, whatever." And I go like, "I don't know the first thing about it." She goes, "I'll hook you up with somebody." And she did. She hooked me up with somebody who helped me. And I built my podcast. Now, why is it called Whispers and Bricks? If and when you read my book, you'll see at the end, there's a story about a young executive who's climbing the ladder of success. And he's going through a neighborhood. He goes out and buys himself a brand new Jaguar, and he's driving through the neighborhood. Maybe he's going a little too fast. Some kids are darting in and out, and all of a sudden he goes wham, and his car gets hit by a brick, and he pulls back and he jumps out of the car, he grabs this kid who threw the brick, and he says, "Why did you do that? You know what that's going to cost me to fix?" And look, he goes, "Please, mister, please. I didn't know what to do. You see, my older brother fell out of his wheelchair and I couldn't lift him up." And he looks at me and says, "Where's your brother?" And he brings him down to the end of the block. And sure enough, there's a little boy in the gutter with an overturned wheelchair. So this executive turns the wheelchair right side up, and he picks the boy up and he puts him in the wheelchair, and he takes his handkerchief and he dries up, the blood from the scratches. And the little boy wheels his brother away, and he says, "Thank you, mister. Thank you so much." And he starts walking back to his car, and he sees the dent, and he vows never ever to fix it because he never wants to forget what happened that day. And you see, the moral is, God whispers to our minds and he whispers to our hearts. But so often we're so busy running through life that we don't have a chance to listen to those whispers. So you know what happens every so often? He throws a brick at us to wake us up.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I've been hit with the brick, but you have a choice. You can listen to the whispers or you can wait for the brick. Hence, Whispers and Bricks.
That's a great story. Tell us about your 7-week program. It's called Whispers and Bricks Academy. What's that all about?
So, I'll preface it with how it came about, and it came about through the podcast, because what my podcast is about: overcoming adversity, helping other people, giving them hope. So many people go through so many different things, and when they're going through it, they think they're the only ones going through it.
Right.
And I bring guests to my podcast, normal everyday people. Some are famous people, some are not famous people, but everybody has a story of overcoming adversity. And I bring the guests on to tell their story so that the people in the audience who are going through that same thing can say, "Wow, I'm not the only one going through that, somebody else." And then they get hope. and they hear, and I always say, I always make sure that my guests leave a contact so that if people want to get in touch with them, just either to talk to them or whatever. So they do that. So I decided that once I started my podcast, I said, you know what? I can help people in other ways, and I can help people with the personal breakthroughs, because so many people are either suffering because they hate their job, they hate their relationship that they're in, or they just don't know what to do. They're giving up. They give up on their dreams. They give up on their hopes, and I said, you know what? I can help them. So I designed this 7-week course that is called Whispers and Bricks Academy. And we go through 7 weeks of becoming, becoming a better you, overcoming your adversity, having your personal breakthrough so that you can go on and do and be better and be more successful, whether it's in business or whether it's in family life or whether it's in friends. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Whatever the issue is, usually it all boils down to one or two different things, and you just have to drill down to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we do in my 7-week program. And here's a little tip for you.
Yeah. What's the tip?
Here's a little tip is like this. People will tell me, impossible. You can't do it in 7 weeks. It doesn't happen in 7 weeks. So I tell them a little story.
Okay.
When the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, right? If you know your Old Testament, all right, in Exodus, right? There were slaves in Egypt for 200 years. And they finally get out, right? Now, you're talking about a guy who's been a slave basically his whole life, because they were, and their parents were slaves, their grandparents were slaves, right? So they have a slave mentality, right?
Right.
A week later, God splits the Red Sea for them. They go through the Red Sea. They get picked up on a little bit of a higher level than when they got out. Okay. 6 weeks later, they are standing at Mount Sinai and they're getting the 10 commandments. They are now on the highest level ever attained by man. How long did it take? 49 days, 7 weeks. So if you don't think you can change, I can help you change in 7 weeks. They went from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high in 7 weeks. Trust me, we can do it.
That's a great story. What is your common message to our audience, especially to those struggling to overcome their challenges and adversities?
Understand something. A, you are not the only one going through it. There are others that are going through it. And if you need help figuring it out, call me, email me, text me. I will help you figure it out. What do you need to do? Number one, you need to have self-confidence. Most of the issues that people have are because they lack self-confidence. They put on weight, they lack self-confidence. They don't think they can do it. They don't think they can get the next promotion because they lack self-confidence. That is one of the biggest challenges that people have, the lack of self-confidence. Once you can get your self-confidence up, you would be surprised at what you can accomplish. All right. The other thing is, understand, it's not how many times you fall. It's how many times you get up. If you fell 7 times, make sure you get up that 8th time. Always get up. Okay.
Right.
And I'm a man of faith. Okay. I have a firm belief in God. All right. Trust me when I tell you, God is out there. He is watching over you. He loves you. He created man. God created man in his own image. If you know your Old Testament, God created man in his own image. Why do you think he created man? Just to beat the heck out of him? No, he loves us. He loves his children. We are his children. He loves his children. He would never do anything to hurt you. So if you're suffering, whatever it is, understand that at the end of the day, it will be for your benefit. You may not see it today and you may not see it tomorrow, but I guarantee you down the road, all of a sudden you will see a huge benefit. And you're going to go, oh, now I understand why I had to go through the things I went through.
Yeah. Wise words. Wise words. Ari, what excites you most going forward?
That is a great question. What excites me the most? Um, honestly, no, Ari, lie to me. Honestly, what excites me the most is speaking to people, speaking to audiences. When I get up on that stage, I'm telling you, the adrenaline that's running through is unbelievable. Thank God I don't do drugs. I don't get high or anything like that, because you know what? My high is standing on that stage talking to 5,000 people. That's my high. That excites me more than anything. So if there's anybody in your audience who's running any kind of an organization, an association or a conference or anything like that, and you need a keynote speaker, trust me, I will be the best thing that has ever happened to your organization,
No, that's
bar none.
That's for sure. Ari, how can people contact you?
So very easy. I've actually got two websites. I've got my regular website, which is arischonbrun.com. I'll spell that. It is ARISCHON, B like boy, RUN like Nancy, arischonbrun.com. And my other website is whispersandbricks.com. So the whispersandbricks.com is all about my podcast and my academy. And the other one is all about my regular website is about my story, and where you can buy my book and get different things that about me. So those are the two best places. You can also find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, all the social media. I don't really do Instagram, by the way. I just
started that. That one's a little tricky.
Yeah, I didn't think I don't want to say anything because people get mad at me, but I think more women use Instagram than men.
Well, we have a large, predominantly women audience here, so
that's good for you.
It's good for me. Yeah.
There you go.
Who knows?
Yeah. So that's it basically. And you can reach me. My email address is ari@arischonbrun.com.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Listen, I am going to list those links in the podcast notes. Ari, you are the real deal. You have taken that experience of survival and helping others to heart. It's so evident that your goal of helping others through troubled waters is true and authentic. I hope your new life's work continues to blossom, and I know you will touch many, many people's lives in a positive way in the future. Thank you again for sharing your story with us. I wish you Godspeed going forward and all the best to you and your family. Anyone with comments and suggestions to improve the podcast are welcome. You can email me at itsarapwithrap@gmail.com. Website is itsarapwithrap.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We have a new Facebook group, and it's all under It's a Rap with Rap. And you can see it on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is It's a Rap with Rap, the podcast uncut. I want to thank everyone for listening. Everyone, please stay safe. And for now, it's a wrap.